Welcome to Occupy Tampa TV. My name is Christopher Kalecki, and I'm here tonight with Tristan Lear. This is a show about the 99%, so pick up the phone and tell us what's on your mind. The phone number is 813-977-6800. We have a very special guest planned for tonight's show. Mayor of the City of Tampa, Bob Buckhorn, will be sitting down for a one-on-one interview tonight with Occupy Tampa. But first, let's get you caught up on your local city occupation. The first Tampa Bay Regional General Assembly was held this past weekend in Gaslight Park. Occupy Tampa was joined by occupations from St. Pete, Lakeland, Bradenton, and Sarasota to meet and discuss ways to improve coordination between the Occupy groups in the Bay Area. The day started off, Tristan, with the work group model, where we had the members of each one of the Occupies kind of get together and start to share ideas and get to know each other. You got to sit in with one of those groups. What was that experience like working with new occupiers?
I joined right in the middle of whatever they were talking about. A lot of people had similar ideas. Lenny had the same kind of idea as me, that we need to, you know, most occupations have the same problems and we need to be learning from each other. What else is brought up?
It was interesting to be able to walk around. I was doing the videography that day. And so I got to go to each one of the groups and listen on what they were talking about. And it was very similar coming from every one of the groups. And it was interesting to watch the flow from an idea being generated in a group to the actual proposal coming up at the General Assembly. Here's some video from our work group session where an idea is born, and this one will find its way all the way to the consensus process.
When Thomas showed up at Occupy Lakeland, there's only about 6 to 10 of us at best, and he mentioned rotating this regional general assembly on a monthly basis, which might create a little bit of interest in Lakeland and Sarasota. They see 6 or 8 people and they don't think much, but if we got a crowd like this in Lakeland, I'm sure some people might notice, especially if we get a hold of the newspaper, the local newspaper, and let them know that we're having a regional meeting, and I can even stretch it, you know, and say we're expecting 100 people. Maybe 50 will show up, but that would be a massive crowd for us. And that might help all the smaller occupiers.
And you guys have a beautiful park here, too.
Yeah, it's a really nice park. Great food nearby, too.
We had talked about doing it monthly for sure, but I like your idea of doing it, you know, every other week, because just because the RNC is coming quickly, we don't have a whole lot of time. So if anyone wants to host it at their place, go ahead and I suggest propose it at this, you know, for in 2 weeks from today. That would be awesome, I think.
Yeah, monthly. We get 2 months left.
I know. I mean, there's only a
Bi-weekly would be good.
bi-weekly.
Because also monthly, that's a long time apart, and we might lose track of like the things that people are doing and planning. So,
But
we need to reach out to every other organization, unions, different progressive parties, just see and hear and connect with them.
Welcome back to Occupy Tampa TV, seen exclusively on Bright House Channel 950, Verizon Fios Channel 30, Comcast Channel 20, and via the internet at tbcn.org. Rebroadcasts of this and all your favorite Occupy Tampa TV shows can be found on Bright House Channel 949 and Verizon Fios Channel 36. Comcast customers demand access to reruns of Occupy Tampa TV. Contact them today. The next Regional General Assembly will be hosted by Occupy St. Pete on Saturday, June 16th at 12 p.m. at South Straub Park. That's at 198 Beach Drive in St. Pete. Tristan, when we take this regional occupation and we move it around from city to city, what are some of the positives that can come out of that for the host city?
For the host city?
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm not the host city. I don't know what it's like to be them. But for us, we saw numbers that I haven't never seen when I've been at Occupy Tampa. I think when you see numbers, you know, it encourages more people. It's kind of a snowball effect. You know, there's a lot of energy. I really enjoyed meeting all the people that I did. I met someone who has a blog called Occupy My Soapbox, and she talked about the Regional Assembly.
And I think having those numbers would create more attention, would bring more attention to the Occupy movement in that town. Having 60 or this weekend 70 or so at Gaslight Park was noticed. We went out for a march afterwards and got those honks of appreciation, which are always great to hear. And so I think it'll be nice to be able to bring our numbers from Occupy Tampa, and Occupy St. Pete is large as well, as we start to move around to some of those other cities. In fact, there is a person on the next video from Occupy Lakeland who is speaking about what having the Regional Assembly in Lakeland might mean.
Deborah Ness.
I'm Deborah.
I'm Deborah.
From Occupy Lakeland.
From Occupy Lakeland.
We have a regional meeting.
We have a regional meeting
Scheduled for Saturday.
scheduled for Saturday,
June 30th.
June 30th
At 10:45.
at 10:45.
Check on Occupy Lakeland.
Check on Occupy Lakeland
Facebook for more details.
for more details.
Bring signs.
Bring signs.
See you then.
See you then.
Information.
That's Occupy Lakeland FL.
Occupy Lakeland FL.
Oh, more. I'm sorry.
Oh, really?
Location.
Location.
Munn Park.
Munn Park,
Downtown Lakeland.
downtown Lakeland.
Directions on Facebook.
Directions on Facebook.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So just to recap, that's Saturday, June 30th at 10:45 a.m. You'll want to visit Occupy Lakeland FL on Facebook for all the details. The park name and address are provided there. We have one more video from the regional. Here's John from Occupy Tampa with an invitation for all of you.
Hey, next up's John. Hi, I'm John.
Hi, John.
With Occupy Tampa.
With Occupy Tampa.
In the education group.
In the education group.
For the last 4 months.
For the last 4 months.
We've been showing Sunday night films.
We've been showing Sunday night films.
Usually documentaries. Related to issues that we're all concerned about. I wanted to extend the invitation. To everyone here and everyone you know. Come down any Sunday night. To Voice of Freedom Park. West Tampa. And do a film with us. We have a Facebook page, Occupy Tampa Education Group. And we post the schedule there. The time is 8:30 at night. Every Sunday. Tomorrow night's film is Dirt.
And for anyone who doesn't know, Voice of Freedom Park is on 2101 West Main Street.
Educational movie nights on Sundays are a real good learning experience, and the movies have really gone and spoken to topics such as food production and migrant workers, to the sexism that we face in marketing and the way that we sell to each other. Bring a chair, bring popcorn and a drink, because it's always educational, and they are weather permitting generally. So check before you head on out. Have you been able to check out many of the movies?
I saw the Black Power mixtape, which blew my mind. You know, you saw much more radical things than what I learned in school going on. In the videos we just saw, I was reminded of the mic check, you know, and that's another thing that I missed from the numbers. I read somewhere that doing a mic check internalizes what someone else is saying too. Like it helps you better listen to other people. And you know, that's a useful tool in terms of achieving consensus, I think.
And it does cause you to listen better when you're actively engaged in the process of amplifying that message across. Well, don't forget, you can send us your tweets. Our address is Occupy Tampa, 2101 West Main Street, Tampa. Please remember to use a box with air holes. And stay tuned, because coming up, we have our first sit-down interview with the mayor of the city of Tampa. I believe that's him on the line there, the Honorable Bob Buckhorn. If you would like a chance to speak with the mayor, call in at 813-977-6800. If he won't talk to you, Tristan and I will. That'd be a picture, sir. I'd like to take a moment to thank the Tampa Collective of Food Not Bombs for providing food for this weekend's Regional General Assembly. Food Not Bombs recovers and shares free vegan or vegetarian food with the public without restriction in over 1,000 cities around the world to protest war, poverty, and the destruction of the environment. The second World Gathering of Food Not Bombs is set for August in Tampa. Here's Elizabeth to tell us more. Elizabeth, coming at you.
Oh, she looks like she's about to.
Hi, I'm
okay.
with Food Not Bombs.
Hi, Food Not Bombs.
Just so everyone knows, the Food Not Bombs World Gathering.
Food Not Bombs World Gathering.
The second one ever. Is coming to Tampa. August 20th. Through the 26th. That's the entire week. Before the Republican National Convention. The point of it is to get people repped and excited for the following week. And to also get people prepared to feed all the protesters. Currently, we have a donation bin set up at Sacred Grounds Coffee House on Bush Boulevard. And you can place vegan, non-perishables, plates, cups, etc. in that bin. Also, we will be having a fundraiser concert at Sacred Grounds sometime in July. So please come to that. You can go, we have an event on Facebook called Food Not Bombs World Gathering. You can also go to Tampa Food Not Bombs. Thanks.
You know, Chris, I think we should do this sports commentator style. If that's
Really?
I just had an image just now.
Okay.
I'm a little more high-strung today than any of the other times I was on TV, so I could really use something in my mouth right now. But
I don't know what to tell you.
I'm.
Well, but speaking of having something in your mouth, that's what Food Not Bombs does.
Yes.
And they've been doing this for Occupy Tampa and Occupies across the country since the movement started. We're actually eating fresh food that would be going to waste otherwise, that would head on down, that would be otherwise thrown out, and there's nothing wrong with it. And there are also, like Elizabeth was saying, there are also places where you can go and donate non-perishable vegan items, and it's always appreciated. We're expecting upwards of 10 to 15,000 protesters in Tampa for the RNC. So I'd say Food Not Bombs has their work cut out for them.
Do they get their food from dumpsters, dumpster diving, or is that someone else?
It's salvage.
Salvage.
Yes, and donations.
Donations. Okay.
And it was awesome this weekend, and thanks again to Food Not Bombs. Well, I'd like to send a special hello out to our viewers. Mr. Herman Anderson and his beautiful wife, Lucille, in South Tampa watching us on Bright House 949, and George M., who's watching us on Verizon 30. If we missed you, let us know. The number is 813-977-6800. One of the proposals that came up during the Regional General Assembly dealt with Bain Capital. Bain Capital is a company that has been investing in all of these companies that you see behind us, and now without us there, through the magic of television. No shortage of companies that you recognize, that's for sure. And in the process, they have been causing numerous people to lose jobs, entire factories sometimes to be shut down, all in the interest of the almighty dollar heading back over to Bain Capital.
I was going to say, Adam Curtis made a documentary, I forget which one, that talks about the hostile takeover movement from the 80s. And Zoe was telling me that that's what Bain Capital really got into. They would, I think how it works is with the hostile takeover, you buy enough shares of the company to be able to make the decisions, and then you sell off all the assets. You fire all the employees, and you sell the junk of the company and pocket it. It's
We have a couple of other items that they have done that we'll cover over here. The Tampa Bay Regional General Assembly passed a proposal calling for Occupy groups from around the world to shut down Bain Capital on August 30th, the day Mitt Romney is expected to accept the nomination of the Republican Party at the RNC in Tampa. In his 2010 book, The Buyout of America, How Private Equity is Destroying Jobs and Killing the American Economy, Josh Kosman described Bain Capital as notorious for its failure to plow profits back into its businesses, being the first large private equity firm to derive a large fraction of its revenues from corporate dividends and other distributions. The revenue potential of this strategy, which may starve a company of capital, was increased in the 70s court ruling that allowed companies to consider the entire fair market value of a company instead of only their hard assets in determining how much money was available to pay dividends. In a nutshell, what we're talking about now is not using cash and not using the tangible items that you have, like the phone and the table, to make up your company's value. We're talking about the logo and the branding and things that don't have any tangible value, that aren't of any equitable resource to anyone else.
speculative value, is that like accurate word for it?
Yeah, because there's no altruistic value to it. There's nothing that you can hold and carry home with you and use to pay your mortgages.
Right. What good does those logos do for society? You know, if it was a value, then it would be doing someone some good, right? But
absolutely,
it's so abstract at this point. Money is so abstract. What does accounts receivable even mean?
That's on it.
I know. I'm not, like I said, this time I feel so much more high-strung this time. But by coming out with that, you know, I'm becoming transparent, and then I won't be as high-strung as usual.
Up.
Speaking of transparency,
backwards. Yeah. So Bain Capital has been using these, their money to go in and purchase rights into these companies, and then sometimes actually breaking them apart. In some instances, companies acquired by Bain borrowed money in order to increase their dividend payments. They're actually going into debt to satisfy their shareholders at the end of the day, ultimately leading to the collapse of what had been financially stable businesses. In Florida alone, I think we've had into the thousands of jobs lost because of Bain Capital and their method of doing business, which is all about the most money, regardless of how many people it takes to hurt to get in there.
they own OSI, don't they? That's the people we mic checked.
Outback Steakhouse,
yeah,
yep. And Carrabba's, and there's a few that are in that group.
They lobbied to cut the minimum wage from like what, $6 to $2 or something like that?
For servers, because they're going to make up that extra loss in all of their tips that they're getting. But when there's not as much money going around, there aren't as many people going out to restaurants, and they're probably not being as gracious as they might with their gratuities.
How how would they justify, like, how would they explain this to someone as a good thing?
The only people they need to justify this to is their shareholders. Those are the people who have that stake in this, that have made those investments and want to see profit coming out of it. They're not interested in a feel-good story about how we saved this factory and these jobs. They're worried about that next dividend payment on their stock portfolio.
So when people brag about capitalism, they say, well, the companies compete to serve the consumer the best. But I don't see that happening. I think that maybe works with shopping for iPods and stuff like that, but
not when it's thousands of people's lives online.
Yeah.
So there is a website to this. Tristan, do you have the address?
It is shutdownbaincapital.occupytampa.org. Work in progress. All of our website also is a work in progress. It was taken down by the 1%.
Let's run with that story. It does sound good.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so you can find more information about Bain Capital and why there is this action that's occurring on the 30th.
You know what I want to talk about also at some point, I think, is the main question that you put on a few pages ahead was how can we use, when we collaborate with the other nearby occupations, what can we uniquely do that we wouldn't otherwise have been able to do on our own individually? You know, what's so funny? Oh, okay.
Our technician's laughing at us.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't know how to answer that question exactly. I mean, California had a port shutdown where all of the General Assemblies, all on the West Coast, all consented to shut down their ports. And it worked. And there was a great explosion of solidarity and excitement when that happened. What could we do collectively with, you know, how can we take it up a notch by working together somehow?
Well, that's interesting. You know, because Bain Capital is spread out to all those companies that we had up prior, there are certainly more than enough places where they could be affected.
That's great.
And I think that just because of the sheer number of different company names that they have, it could present a very interesting day of trying to get our message heard at a bunch of different places. I found when we went to Outback and Carrabba's, the servers, the kitchen staff, they didn't actually know about this potential new minimum wage law coming into play in Florida. On our exit from one of the Outbacks, we were actually being applauded by the kitchen staff and the people that were there.
Some of them did know. One of them was like raising the solidarity fist for us when we came in and did the mic check. That was towards the tail end of the night when we were riding off the energy we got from all the other ones.
Mm-hmm. So I think, you know, the way that America works now with the amount of entertainment options that are there, it kind of drives someone directly to their couch to turn on that television and to melt into the entertainment universe instead of paying attention to what's going on. And I think that is probably going to be the biggest problem that Americans face when trying to overcome these issues.
I think a big part of that whole turning on the TV and drooling on yourself for the rest of the night comes from having to work 40, 50 hours a week. You don't have any energy to appreciate anything of artistic value or of interest, you know, or, you know, contemplate politics or anything like that. All you can do is watch, you know, Kick 'em Off the Island show or whatever.
Well, and it's difficult as well if you were interested in getting some news of the day to be able to turn on certainly Fox News, MSNBC, and CNN and feel like you're becoming educated. What you're hearing is what they've been told to tell you about. MSNBC frustrates me almost as much as Fox News does, because they've tried to mold themselves in this Fox News form, but for the liberal point of view.
It's all gossip. The few times I've watched MSNBC, I hear gossip. The same way I hear gossip on Fox News. Irrelevant, you know, sports, really, competition.
And the news that they're providing isn't really news. There are so many problems out there. There are people in countries that can't get water, that can't get food, and instead we're following around football players and their girlfriends to see where they're getting married and where they're going to have their babies. I don't.
Occupy lost their news presence a little bit. That port shutdown was never on the news. We need the news to, you know, give us positive feedback for all the work we're doing. Right now all we have is jail.
What do you think of the news media starting to regionalize the Occupy movement? Have you noticed that when Occupy Boston goes out and has an event, it's recorded and covered by the Boston area news, but it doesn't have that spread where it's coming out and becoming national news. They'd rather look at Boston having an event singularly, instead of looking that that same event was going on in all of the other Occupy cities around the country.
That's interesting. The local news has a little more autonomy, it looks like, than the national news. I mean, May Day, even though it wasn't as glamorous as we thought it was going to be, that was something we all tried to do. But yeah, it's the local news that reports about Occupy Tampa. It makes it look a lot less significant than it could be, I think.
Well, and I think that it's a systematic approach to trying to marginalize the movement. When you saw the Chicago protests, CNN seemed to have that video angle that was elevated maybe a floor or two. And they had that police line where the protesters were in there and the sticks were going back and forth. And the anchor on CNN said, how could they be doing that to these people? Like, I don't know what they did, but they probably couldn't have done anything to deserve what was happening to them. That story didn't last a cycle, a day in the news. It was over and done and swept under the rug, and what's the follow-up been since? Where is that, that ongoing news cycle, other than on websites like RT, on Russia Today? It's outside of this country that's taking a look in. We criticize China and their human rights record, and then China releases a report on our human rights record. And their key talking point in this memo was about the handling of the Occupy movement by the U.S. government.
I didn't know they did that.
And, you know, it's very quick to be disregarded by certainly the country and then the national media outlets. And I don't think that it should just be ignored.
You know, I think that reminds me of like the digital divide, the difference between people who get their news from TV versus the internet. There's, in terms of awareness of what's going on, like if you want Occupy-related news, you're going to get it from the internet mostly, not from TV, which also explains the crackdowns on the internet lately, the repeated attempts to make it more like cable TV.
Oh, sure, and if you saw out in Chicago, one of the Occupy Ustreamers, Timcast, was actually followed out of a building where he was staying, and they had their car searched with no particular cause or justification by 12 police officers. It's clear the intent. They want to frighten people from being out there. They don't want the story to be covered, and we're here to fight against that. This is an important movement. This is the most important movement of our lives.
What else is there?
Yeah.
What else is there? If we fail this, then what else is there? Another example of what you're talking about is Joe J. recently took a picture of the cameras they're setting up, and the cop harassed them. My friend Grace asked a cop for his badge number, and he arrested her. The cops that you're talking about intimidating, why don't the cops identify with the people they're supposed to be serving and protecting? Why do they? I don't understand.
I think they're not allowed to have that philosophical debate within themselves, and that's the turning point, I think, in a lot of movements, when the force that protects the status quo and the current system starts to consider the alternative of standing up against it. That's when revolution occurs. When Egypt fell, it was because the swarms of army personnel were coming back over and resigning. When Syria is having their army come over to the rebel side and documenting, yes, these atrocities that have been occurring are government sponsored. I was there. I saw it. Those are the events, I think, that push the momentum over and cause the revolution to go in full bore.
So the very instruments of the power of the corporatocracy in the state is the individuals, the police, the military that sustain it. It is the 99% that sustains the 1%, and that's so absurd. We think of it like there's the state and everything as this huge, huge, incredible obstacle to overcome, but we volunteer our support for them. So we go against our own interests voluntarily, the police or whatever, the instruments of power that obey orders and feel that just because they're obeying orders, they're not responsible for what they're doing. I mean, in that sense, it's very much, you know, a psychological project that we're up against.
Well, and it's dangerous territory for a police officer to start thinking about the alternatives, to think about, what if I'm not going to follow the instructions that I've received today?
You lose your health care, you lose your job, you know.
Absolutely. And it's not just this job, because that'll tarnish your record as a peace officer forever. It's not like that'll get off the resume anytime soon. So that's a real issue in an economy where they're not hiring police officers a mile a minute in cities across the country. In fact, police departments, just like every other public service, are having their budgets slashed at. In St. Petersburg, they're going to be able to find money to destroy an existing pier and replace it with some other godforsaken creation. But they can't afford the $50 million that the police department needs for a new station. We aren't, and I think that we should be clear, we certainly aren't against the police department and the police department having what they need to be able to provide that service that they are sworn to do.
By the way, I just found out the other day there is an Occupy police. Occupy movement among the police.
No kidding.
Yep, there's a website and everything. Jake is on line 4.
Fantastic.
Do you want to say hello to Jake?
Absolutely. Hello.
We could always just drop the call. Okay.
Hello, Jake.
Hi, Jake.
Hello?
Thank you for calling.
Yeah, sure thing.
I hope you guys aren't watching us over there.
No, there's a huge tech-fight discussion about, I can't even get into it, but basically you guys are talking about police brutality, right?
Yeah.
At the moment.
I'm going to argue in favor of it. Here's why police brutality can be useful. The state functions because it has the monopoly on violence, right? Legitimate violence. But the key word here is legitimate. As soon as it ceases to be seen as operating in a legitimately violent state, in other words, when it perpetuates illegitimate violence, the function of the state is thus seen as illegitimate. This is when their violence can be deeply useful to us. That's why you always see rioting after an incident of police brutality, most famously, say, Rodney King, right? That's why you saw all this uproar about Trayvon Martin. Prior to the sort of media spin on it, and what they did was quite brilliant, because basically what they did was, if they tried to play it down or say that it's not important, people would have been even more further outraged. What they did was, they shifted the source of the outrage to George Zimmerman. It was never about George Zimmerman. George Zimmerman was a nutcase who did what nutcases do. He's violent. What people were mad about was the police. The police basically let him go, protested the corpse and not the guy, and that was the source of illegitimacy that was the source of anger. The same thing with like when Harvey Milk was killed. When Harvey Milk was killed at first, it was a tragedy because people there was a silent vigil, march, and so on. The riots came after the jury basically acquitted the dude, or basically gave it an involuntary manslaughter because of his diet of sugar.
Right.
So the rage is always directed against the state. So same thing with, remember the whole Scott Olson thing in Oakland? That brought a lot of people out. It brought people out to us after that happened. In other words, because the state operates on a threat. But as soon as that threat is realized, the state appears weirdly impotent, and that's where its authority sort of collapses in on itself. And so, to some level, police brutality can be actually useful to anybody who sees the current state as illegitimate and wants And of course, it sucks if you're the one who's receiving that violence, but you know, there's an upside to it for any revolutionary movement.
Yeah.
So,
We need to pick a fight with the state. I was talking with one of my professors about that a while back. He's ridiculously conservative, and so we would have these really entertaining conversations with each other. And I was, really, really psyched about Occupy at the time. And he told me, my theory at the time was exactly what you're saying, that we need to pick a fight with the state and demonstrate whose side they're on. And he told me that I guess that's not original.
Hello?
Is that the state behind you?
yeah, I gotta get out of here. Damn. Okay, I gotta go. Bye.
No. Well, apparently Jake was not the first to come up with that.
He's gone.
Yeah.
That's that. Well, and Jake did bring up an interesting point. The St. Pete Times this weekend had a two-part segment on the Stand Your Ground law in the state of Florida, and they were talking about the uneven distribution of the Stand Your Ground cases that have been dismissed when the assailant was white and the victim was anything other than white, and the stunning reversal when the assailant was a black person or a Hispanic person and the victim was white.
I heard that on the news this morning on NPR, I think. Is that what you're saying?
If you missed it, you can definitely check out the Tampa Bay Times. The story is available on their website, and they did some very good research that the state has actually said they're going to use in reevaluating that Stand Your Ground law.
Another thing this reminds me in terms of picking a fight with the state. The other day we talked to Max Romeo, and he is the guy who had a lot to do with the Take Back the Land movement. And he told us one way to really demonstrate whose side the police want to be on is when they're dragging grandma out of the house to leave it empty, when a whole neighborhood might rally behind to keep that person in the house. I mean, it's a universal moral principle that everyone can get behind, not dragging Granny out of the house, and the police are making a decision who they're gonna stand for. Mm-hmm. And he also said that you can have one of two goals. You can either try to keep people, in terms of their movement, you can try to keep people in their homes as long as possible, or you can force a community dialogue about getting community control of the land and elevating housing as a human right. But they're not compatible with each other. What they do is they very publicly move people into vacant homes. They don't make a secret of it. And, that's another example of picking a fight with the state to demonstrate what's going on.
And foreclosure defense has been a tool that the Occupy movement has used very well in several other cities across the country, where people on the verge of foreclosure, through no fault of their own, either medical illness, sometimes even bank error, where that error is pointed out and the bank doesn't care. We're already on that path to foreclosure.
Neither do the judges.
The Occupy movement has stepped in, has gone and occupied these homes with people, and in some cases has been able to stop the foreclosure process.
I was going to say, the Take Back the Land movement was something that a lot of people never heard of, but everyone's heard of at least Occupy Wall Street. They might have a real chance here to popularize that. And that, if you can popularize not letting bullies drag you out of your home, then I think the revolution has a real chance. Mortgage strikes, rent strikes, etc.
But to that end, if you yourself are facing a potential foreclosure,
please,
and you would be interested in having Occupy Tampa lend a hand and see what we can do to try to help, definitely contact us. Do we have a foreclosure email, or should we just send it?
I might have a flyer. I don't know where it is.
All right.
No, wait. You know what we do? Foreclosure@occupytampa.org.
So there you go. Foreclosure@occupytampa.org. Or give us a call here while we're on the air, 813-977-6800. We'd love to help. That's definitely something that we'd like to be able to do for a family or several families down here in Tampa who are being wrongly foreclosed upon in one of the most economically hit areas of the country. In fact, we're right up there with Detroit in terms of the worst economic metro area in the country.
Well, the graph, I saw a graph. I wish we could show it, but in Florida has the bar for Florida. You know, the other states go right here. The bar for Florida goes right here in terms of foreclosures. The state legislator just tried to pass a bill. Again, they do it every year to remove due process from foreclosure, so that the burden of proof is on the homeowner to you know, and it removes tenants' rights. I mean, it's so emperor has no clothes at this point.
No. It is, I got a little distracted there. I don't like being pointed at sometimes.
Oh, does that mean?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
What?
It's the guy pointing at us on the back. It's true. Well,
so you caught us.
Well, you know, we promised this for a little while. On April Fool's Day, 2011, the city of Tampa swore in the 56th mayor in this city's history. 6 months later, the mayor was invited to speak with the Occupy Tampa General Assembly. He declined. When he was presented with a proposal to give Occupy Tampa use of one of the city parks, he declined. But tonight, for the first time, Occupy Tampa's very own reporter Jake sits down for the one-on-one interview it seemed only money could buy.
Welcome to Occupy Tampa TV, Occupy Tampa TV, the televised revolution. Tonight's scheduled guest was Mayor Bob Buckhorn, but Bob Buckhorn declined to be interviewed. So, joining me today in the studio is Bob Buckhorn. Bob Buckhorn, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Mayor Buckhorn, you've been in the city now for 30 years. You've been in office in various positions for nearly your entire time present here. What was it that inspired you to come to the city of Tampa, and what inspired you to run for mayor of the city?
Well, to tell you the truth, I love the sun. And you know, Tampa's located in the Sunshine State. And what brought me to the city is the money. I love money. And Tampa's centrally located, 4 hours from Miami, 4 hours from Tallahassee, casinos everywhere. You have the river. I can go for swims.
What else? Like, surely Tampa Bay has a vibrant business community. We have a number of other features that escape me at the moment.
Well, the businesses, I'm so-so with that. But the water in Hillsborough River is great. I love going for a swim in Hillsborough River. That is the only thing that really brought me to the city. And why I decided to run for mayor? Man, have you seen Mary Mulhern? Wow.
Fair enough. Even so, we do actually have a fairly inefficient public transit system.
Who uses public transportation anyway?
The public, I suppose.
Man, those losers, we have the lowest per capita rate of losers in the world.
In the world?
In the world.
Now, about the homeless problem.
What problem? I see no homeless people in Tampa.
Well, specifically, what I wanted to talk about is a little-known law in Florida that basically states that if a stadium is built for sporting events and is financed to some extent by the public, that stadium has to be used for shelter of the homeless when they need it.
Says who? I didn't approve that law.
That's a little-known state law, but it is very much on the record and would apply to the stadiums that we have in Tampa.
That's why it's little known. If you quit exposing it, no one else would know.
Well, this law would actually apply to the stadium that the Buccaneers used in Tampa. Have they actually been housing people in that stadium?
Yes, they have.
Really?
Who do you think are in those uniforms on that field?
Do you mean to tell me that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers are actually all homeless people?
No, not the starting few, but the rest of them, they don't make seven-figure salaries.
I really don't know what to say to any of this. I don't even know how to substantiate these outlandish claims.
Outlandish? What is outlandish is me being here talking to you.
Fair enough. On that note, we're going to take a short break. This is Occupy Tampa TV. Stay with us.
All right, we're back. Well, I'd like to thank Bob Buckhorn, Mayor of the City of Tampa, for spending a few minutes there with Occupy Tampa. There are definitely a lot of concerns that Occupy Tampa has with the mayor's office and the way that he has handled this movement since its inception. And it's been demoralizing, truly, above all else. There have been cities that have found ways to work with their local mayor's office and city council. And Tampa wasn't able to do that. But a big shout out to the man who was, Joe Redner, who let us use his Voice of Freedom Park in West Tampa to house our Occupy movement here and to let it grow into what it is today. Tristan and I sitting in front of a facial shot of Bob Buckhorn.
I heard it was infested with lice recently, actually, Voice of Freedom Park, unfortunately. But
I'm sorry?
Yeah, they got a lice problem down there at the moment. No, see, this is an important point. Transparent organizational self-reflection. This is what I saw at Occupy Wall Street. I always give this example. They had a post in the, on the GA website that there was some transgender insensitivity problems, and so the security patrol that night was going to be in full drag, and they said there will be glow sticks. I mean, yeah, being open about your issues, you know, definitely. But I guess Bob Buckhorn, by not cooperating, did us a favor in the sense that he kept the conflict with the state going. But he was so harsh with it. I remember, yeah, he tried to. He did it too well, I guess.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you have lice or if you've had lice, give us a call here.
We need to know what to do.
977-6800.
We don't know how to deal with lice.
It's the Lice Power Hour.
Any advice you could give on either how to collaborate effectively or how to deal with lice would be useful.
You know, we could actually try to research and find how the lice work together, because it's clearly not just one of them. So why don't we dual purpose their extraction with education about their practices?
Swarm intelligence is going to be what gets the revolution going. You got me going.
I thought it was Twitter, but no.
Well, that's actually part of swarm intelligence. When anyone in, say you're revolutionaryizing, and any one person in a protest or something gets information about what the cops are doing, you can tweet it, and then all of a sudden everyone else knows. Got swarm intelligence. To look up swarming tactics, that's something I've always tried to learn about. But swarms are where it's at. And
yeah, if you are interested in following us on Twitter, Tristan, you are at
Trissy Tits, TRISSYTITS.
And I'm at Kulecki, KULECI. And our producer in the back, Jeff, is Jeff in TPA. It's some of your, and follow, of course, at Occupy Tampa, if you don't already. You'll notice that a lot of the material there closely resembles our Facebook page.
I would just like to point out that we actually have a TV show.
It's pretty incredible.
I mean, I've always talked with my friends about having a talk show, and now we finally have one. And we don't have any callers.
Well, callers would disrupt the flow. I mean, sure, try. All right, if you haven't had lice, this is now your time to call it 813-977-6800. Lice time is over.
How many minutes do we have left?
Way too many. Yeah, same time, same lovely channel. 2 weeks from now, Occupy Tampa TV, right back here on that list of channels that I gave you earlier, and online at tbcn.org. Should probably tell you about, I like that guy, isn't he nice? You almost do the pose.
Oh, man.
There he is.
He's like, you. No, you.
I want you to Occupy Tampa.
I love you more.
Well, we'd like to tell you about some of the other changes at camp. First, the General Assembly schedule has been changed. Tristan put a lot of work and effort into a proposal that Jake railroaded right through the General Assembly.
See, I railroaded it right through the General Assembly. This was a proposal properly done.
It was.
Work group was formed online. Pages and pages of back and forth of concerns and stuff, and sure enough, the General Assembly was like, okay.
And the end result is General Assembly meetings for Occupy Tampa will be held on Wednesday and on Saturday. And Saturday's location is at Curtis Hickson Park. downtown, and the Wednesday location is at Voice of Freedom on West Main. Tristan, what were some of the reasons that caused you to start thinking about a different way to run the GA?
Well, it's what we did in Toledo. I mean, I saw it happen in Toledo, and it scared me because I really liked the idea of people meeting once a day. It sounds so productive, but people have, you know, we're all wage slaves, right? So I realized when I'd gone to a General Assembly once, and there was just like, so you want to have General Assembly or what, you know? When people don't have confidence in a central time, they don't show up. And it's a better way to get real consensus because you get a more wider representation of everybody if they can just have confidence in a central time to show up and see everyone.
And so those times are still 7:30 on both evenings, correct?
Uh-huh.
And then the rest of the week, that does not mean that Occupy Tampa is closed up shop. We're having what are called daily assemblies. Daily assemblies will still have the announcements telling everyone what work groups are involved and what actions. And there can be proposals that deal with logistical things in nature, camp-related issues, but nothing that would be so large of a proposal that to pass it without the full General Assembly on board would be inappropriate.
You know, and that's where the breakdown between bureaucracy and you know, what you have in your heart, I think, demonstrates. You know, that right there is a matter of taste. You can try to articulate what is and is not appropriate kind of proposal, but the fact remains that all social structures are in motion. If people aren't okay with something later on, they can change it. You know. There was a lot of confusion about people. Most people didn't know that Curtis Hickson was the Saturday location. I didn't know that. Apparently, it was passed at probably a very small General Assembly before. Yay! Hi.
John, you're on the air.
Hey, how you guys doing?
Great.
First off, really enjoying your guys' show today.
Oh, thank you.
I just wanted to touch on one thing. I think that one thing that's really, truly underappreciated about the Occupy movement is the global aspects that it has. And the reach is way far and beyond Wall Street. People from all around the world are rising against their respective governments on issues like hunger, shelter, housing, the rights to education. These are all universal concerns that, for me personally, I believe transgender, you know, all the artificial borders that are set up against us. I know as well, we use the phrase all the time that, you know, think globally and act locally. But I think our true power is going to come when we, you know, can think and act globally, and we can do it all together. And on that note, I'd like to push a little personal project that I have going on, which is you go to Facebook /Occupy the Earth. That's something I've been trying to work on to try and get some of the global aspects going. And it also has a little website with it, which is occupytheearth.info. How much you guys have on that, I'd love to take.
You know, I'm guilty of not paying as much attention to what's going on outside the country. Do you have any news you want to share?
Well, last night, for example, there was a huge candlelight vigil in Hong Kong, which, you know, drew like 200,000 people. Drew very little media attention, but it was a huge step. Because, you know, in China, still 23 years later, you can't even send flowers to a widow of somebody who was killed during the oh God, I can't even think of the name of it.
Tiananmen Square.
Tiananmen Square, yes, Tiananmen Square massacre. You can't even send flowers to a widow. You know, people that lost their children can't even recognize those events, and that still goes on in China today. Of course, Syria, just a week or so ago, hundreds of people killed, 49 children under 10 years old that were massacred. And you know, that's certainly things that I think a lot of people watch, and I know that they're, you know, those people are watching us too and seeing what we're doing.
We thank God for the internet at this point, because we would have no idea that we're you know, we can at least see each other doing
unfortunately, I'm not able to be in the camps as much as I would like to be in the Occupy movement, but I do spend a lot of time online and certainly you know, watch these things as much as I can, and try and spread the word as much as I can. But you know, again, it's going on everywhere. It's not just Wall Street. It's not Occupy Tampa. It's going on Wall Street. There's divisions all over the world. And I think even when you look at Tunisia and Egypt, even though they might not call themselves you know, Occupy, I think they're still basically kind of the same type fights that we're having.
I mean, that's like the textbook definition of solidarity, right? Like, I usually think the word's cliche or whatever, but it's really important. It's like a fundamental force of.
And it's interesting, John, that you mentioned the international aspect, because our next series of actions have an international flavor to them. The student protests up in Montreal have been underway for months now, and every evening the students were leading a pots and pans rally out in their cities. And people would walk through town clanging their pots and pans together with red patches on their shirts. And those red patches didn't stand for communism. They stood for squarely in the red, where we are in debt, how much it's costing us to get our educations, how much debt we're under from the credit cards. And so in solidarity with those marches, the regional GA actually went on a march in solidarity with the students. And we are now going to begin Friday at 8 p.m. and every Friday from here on, marching through West Tampa and inviting the community to come out, hit their pans and their pots with us, and start to make some noise as a collective body.
And one thing, and it kind of ties into this, one thing you guys mentioned earlier, we were talking about media coverage, and I've actually seen, since the Occupy movement started, a lot less media coverage. I mean, almost to the point of where it seems like they're purposely not reporting things that are going on, such as the Montreal strikes, things going on globally that they're not even reporting anymore. And I think it's almost purposeful because they don't want to see the snowball effect that it has.
Well, COINTELPRO is back. I mean, they had they're the ones who led a campaign against Martin Luther King too.
And it's
I've got to get back to work, guys. Wonderful show. Thank you again for everything you're doing, and look forward to seeing you guys.
Thank you, John. Have a good evening.
Speaking of debt, I don't know if I'm taking up the last few minutes. Is there anything you want to get out?
No. Go for
it. Like, I always had this concern, and maybe this is magical thinking, but debt reminds me of one of those very things, those consensual oppressions. I mean, they still have not reinstated debtor's jail. They're trying, actually, but...
debtor's jail?
Yeah, that was abolished in the 1800s. You can't go to jail for debt. Now they're trying to do it now with, making you late to court and stuff, but debt, like money, is a social construction, and the envelope isn't going to get you. I don't understand why people care so much. I never intend to pay back my student loans. I don't see why anyone does.
The biggest concern that I have about student loans is coming up in this summer. The federal government now has an opportunity to find some way to keep student loan interest rates from doubling from 3.4 to 6.8%. This is a staggering amount of money that's being burdened on students in universities when banks are able to borrow from one another at 0.0125%. 1/8% is the interest rate that they're paying on money that they're borrowing from the Federal Reserve and each other.
They can buy and sell chances of futures, of likelihoods, of percentages, of interest rates, of rates, of... It's pretend. It's gotten very pretend at this point.
It is.
1 minute left, everybody.
And so yeah, real quickly with our last minute, we'd like to talk to you about oil speculation. We've been in the market for a while, and we'd love to get you in as well. No, we're not into that. We need to stop this kind of crap. Who needs oil speculation? It's driving up the cost of oil. We're paying not much down here. I filled up at $3.27 a gallon. People in California are still paying $4 and change because one refinery is closed over there. All of us are paying more because of the speculation in the market, the greed that's there, people short selling oil today that they're going to buy back later. It's ridiculous.
I get off on it myself. I feel like it's going to accelerate.
That Deepwater Horizon was the nicest thing ever to happen in Tristan's life.
No, not that one. Not that one.
Okay, good.
But I mean, people's inability to just basically function, to go to work, to go to school.
I'm Chris.
Goodbye, everybody.
This is Tristan. Have a great evening. He wasn't a big fan of the BP spill. All right, thanks.